What's going on, Military Cashflow family? What's going on, Mike? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. I just closed on another triplex and
Huh,
I'm working on a syndication deal. So things are
huh.
going good, man. We'll see. By the time this airs, we'll actually see how that syndication deal played out. But so far,
Big,
so good, man. How's
big.
uh how's everything with you, man? Oh, deployed.
Yeah, if you say deployment, but I mean, I'm in a hard stand building. I'm not, in any real danger or anything like that. So I'd rather call this a rotation. But it's going,
Nice.
just working pretty much. I cut out a little bit of time, set up a little bit of space to do this recording. So still overseas, making it happen. No excuses, and that's pretty much it with me, man. That's pretty much it with me.
You gotta love it,
I'm
man.
actually over here with my wife. That's actually pretty cool. That I don't think a lot of people
Oh,
get an opportunity to do that. So both of me and my wife are on the same staff. So it's pretty dope, man. It's pretty dope.
that is awesome. That is awesome. Makes it a lot more bearable for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I see you got your sweet military cash flow shirt on.
Oh, yes. Hey, guys. Hey, for all of our listeners, this is coming out soon, right? It ain't here yet. This is a prototype, but yo, the military cash flow swag is a coming. But yeah. And matter of fact, perfect segue to find all of this sweet swag, plus some of our courses and everything else we have to offer. You just go visit us at militarycashflow.com. It's a work in progress and we're adding more and more stuff all the time, but go check it out to get all the newest stuff. So,
Yeah.
who do we got for today?
Yeah, so today we got Marcus Long. He's coming to us from
Mm.
the Navy. He's in the Navy and he's in England. He's in no, I was gonna say good day, mate, but that's like that's like
I,
Australia.
that's
So
just pure
eating crumpets.
racism.
There you
All
go. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
he's over in England and he's in the Navy, and we're gonna talk about his bulletproof style investing.
Yeah, and we're covering everything, guys, from his first, original condo to how he bought a 36-acre farm to a commercial real estate property to syndication. Like it just the whole journey is like this up and hill battle, but it's seamless, very risk adverse, very, very efficient way of doing it. So with that being said, let's get to it.
What's going on, guys? This is Dan Wynn,
And Mike Glaspie.
and welcome to Military Cashflow. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Marcus Long, coming to us from the Navy, and he has a very long storied, a very long past of investing, right? And we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit. Welcome to the show, Marcus. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are, what you're doing, and let us know.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be on here to chat today and kind of spread the military cash flow message. I'm a husband, father of two little ones. I'm a naval officer. I enlisted right out of high school in 2001 and commissioned in the Navy as an officer in 2007, and a real estate investor. And so we'll kind of get into the story a little bit, but it started pretty early on actually in my career, and it's kind of been similar to the rolling start of a NASCAR race. It took me quite a while to kind of get going. I acquired a few properties in the first 10 years or so, but it's just been in the recent years where I kind of escalated the velocity at which I've picked up some single family, and I got stationed over here in England about a year ago, and so I've had to kind of I've pivoted a little bit recently to kind of get into some limited partnership and some syndications, and as well as doing some private lending. So that's kind of where I am right now.
That's awesome, man. Hey, I got to ask. So a lot of people, they go to college and, did you go to military college or did you go to ROTC program?
I went through, it was associated with the ROTC program at the University of Missouri.
Okay. And so did you always intend to join the military? Was it like a family tradition or was it like free college? What was your thought?
It was interesting really because I do have, certainly both my grandparents were in the military. I've had some uncles and stuff that were, but actually so my brother joined about a year before I did. And he actually had tried to convince me to join. And a year before I did, I told him, there's no way I'm joining the military. I'm certainly not going active duty. And as I got closer to the end of my senior year, I kind of just realized I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't really want to go to college at that point in time and just waste time, not knowing what I was trying to do. And so, yeah, it was just really in the last few months before I graduated high school that I decided to join. And so I made the decision and left 2 weeks out of high school.
So you made the decision to join the Navy. You said you were in college, or you don't want to waste that time afterwards, right? You don't want to waste that time afterwards, right? So what kind of drove that decision, right? Did you maybe read something, or did something kind of hit you and you're like, well, I'm not really sure what I want to do? And where did that, I guess, idea really come from?
Yeah. So I was still in high school at the time, and I think I didn't want to go like waste money and time in college. Like, of course, now, looking back now, your first couple of years are a lot of basic courses and stuff like that, where you kind of have time to make a decision. So, it may not have been a big impact, but I didn't want to go spend time in college and spending money when I really didn't have a direction to go to. And so initially, I just kind of thought I was buying myself time. I was like, oh, I'll join for 4 years. That'll give me some more time to decide what path I want to go. And really all it did was open more options. And here I am, 19 plus years later. So
you gotta love that about the military. It's and I'm out now, I'm a veteran now after 10 years or so, but it was the same thing. I got in with the intent to like, hey, yeah, this is just a little bit more wiggle room before I can decide, or I can gain another skill set. And before you know it, a couple of deployments later in England, doing apartment syndications. Gotta love it.
How was that, being in England and still doing work back here? How are you managing that?
Yeah, so it's been an adjustment, a little bit different. I've been stationed in, Virginia and Hawaii and California and Colorado and stuff, and most of my investments are in Missouri and stuff anyway. So I've been used to doing long distance investing over the course of my career. Coming over here is a little bit different because you add in even more. I guess it's similar to Hawaii. You add in even more of a time difference and stuff, like when you're coordinating with people and things like that. But part of that's we can get to in a while as well when we start talking about. That's kind of why I made a little bit of a pivot. I still have a lot of the buy and holds, but I was fortunate as I kind of went through my career and some of the other investing and things that I did have a little bit of a capital built up to my disposal, and so that kind of gave me the opportunity to pivot a bit and get into as a limited partner in a couple syndications, apartment, mobile home park syndications, and as well as some of the private lending that I've been doing as well. So yeah, it's allowed me to pivot, and so now I'm doing some buy and hold stuff as well as other investing.
So let's rewind the clock then. Let's rewind the clock. So here you are, a young buck, brand new, commissioned. Now, did you buy your first home recently, right after you commissioned? Was it before? Tell us about that first deal, kind of what it looked like. Was it an intentional investment? Kind of like the whole story about that first deal.
Yeah, I think it's a really important one. And it certainly is, I'll tell you about it. It wasn't a home run by any means. It was kind of base hit, and it kind of got me started. I actually bought it when I was still enlisted, and I was going back to Columbia, Missouri. It was part of the commissioning program. And so the program that I did, I didn't have my degree. It was called Seaman to Admiral, State 21, and basically sent me back to college to get my degree while I was still on active duty. And so I spent 3 years there, 36 months to get my degree. And I was getting paid active duty and getting my BAH. And so in the months leading up to going back to school, I had always been interested in, math and finance and stuff. And I ended up being a finance major. And so I thought, at that point in time, I was 22 years old, and I was like, I knew that there was value in home ownership. And so I wanted to look into buying something, the BAH would kind of cover the cost of buying one. And so I went back and looked at some properties. I had spent a couple months at commissioning up at a school up at Port Rhode Island. And so before I went to that school, I went home, I did some house hunting, and I had a realtor that had been a family friend and stuff. And so she helped me, took me around to look at some condos, and I ended up deciding on one. And it was a new construction, 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo. And honestly, I wasn't looking at it as like a rental or a cash flow investment or anything like that. I just, I think it was more like I knew that real estate was a wealth building tool, and it was an opportunity to purchase something. So, as a 22-year-old, I think I was mostly thinking of it from, the equity pay down, the debt pay down over time, and building some equity like long term. I wasn't thinking about cash flow. I didn't run it as a rental property. I didn't think about, the ability to potentially do forced appreciation or anything else, And so I bought a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath, new construction condo. And so that's where, I moved in there whenever I got back to Columbia, Missouri, and started going to school. And shortly thereafter, I ended up house hacking, kind of before I knew the term, rented out a room to one of my high school friends. So it wasn't very intentional in that aspect either. He wanted a place to live. I knew, again, being a finance guy, I was like, a chance to pay part of the mortgage. And so we kept moving in that direction. And it wasn't until after I graduated and got commissioned, and I moved. I got stationed in Hawaii. And so at that point in time, I decided to rent it out. And that's probably the point in time when I started realizing some of these other, the cash flow and things like that, because it is in an HOA. And so you start realizing like, oh, it's not just the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. There are these other expenses that go along when you're trying to make cash flow off of a rental property. And so, that property typically has cash flowed probably $100 a month. But in 12 years that I've been gone, it's probably only been vacant for maybe 2 months, I think. So, altogether. So it's pretty, I've learned a lot. Like I said, it wasn't a home run rental investment. But the equity that I got over time and things like that also have allowed me to use some of that to get into other properties down the road.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. And you said one key thing there. You kept saying, hey, it wasn't a home run. It wasn't a home run. It wasn't a home run. It was a base hit, right? A lot of times that's all that you need. I'd say more times than not, that's all that you need is that base hit, because that starts to get the wheels turning, right? And you probably learned so much through just that one property. You talked about, you learned some house hacking there, right? Before we even coined the term what house hacking was. So you were already house hacking. You understood there was appreciation, debt pay down that way, and appreciation, not even considering forced appreciation. You had it rented out to a friend, so you got to understand that experience of being a landlord, right? Kind of managing the property. And then more importantly, you understood, or you learned how to analyze future deals. It's just like you said, it's more than just PITI. It's more than just principal, interest, tax, and insurance. Now you got HOA. Oh, well, now you got vacancies. Luckily, you didn't have to really worry about any vacancies. But how much you learned in the process of just off of that base hit, and that eventually built up to where now you've got bases loaded all the time. You know what I mean? So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And I still, like I said, since sometimes people think they have to have the home run to get started because they hear everyone else's things. And at that point in time, I wasn't even looking for a rental investment, but I learned so much from that. And as I said, like over the next 10 years, I didn't do a lot of investing. So by the time I was ready to buy some other stuff, I did have some, equity in there that I've used for cross-collateralization and stuff. And so the amount that investment in that property is still, one of the most important things I ever did as a 22-year-old.
So I got it. You're exactly right, man. There's so many people that, first off, when people tell their hoorah stories, they're only telling the good stuff. That makes a good story, right?
That's
so
right.
People get infatuated. I mean, that's the problem with social media these days, right? Everybody sees the glitz and the glamour. They don't see the struggle. And so understanding that you have to get into the game to even play the game, that you have to get that first deal is super important. I'm going to take just a small step back, because you've dropped a little nugget out there that a lot of people aren't aware of. Is your program where it took you from enlisted to officer, is it called C to Admiral? Is that correct?
Seaman to Admiral.
Okay.
State 21.
Seaman to Admiral. And I'm assuming that's very similar to the Army's green to gold, where we take enlisted, right? So for all the service members listening out there, guys, there are so many little pieces, little nuggets that the military provides service members to take advantage, where Marcus was able to say, hey, I'm ready to advance my career. I'm ready to take myself further, even outside of the military, and the military will pay for it all. Right. So just a quick nugget there. I just wanted to kind of drop that in there. I've never heard of Seaman to Admiral, but it's the same thing as green to gold. And then HOA. If you could just briefly explain what an HOA is, and then if you remember, what is actually included or what is included in your HOA for that condo?
Right. Yeah. So HOA is a homeowners association. And basically, I mean, for those not familiar, they basically have bylaws and stuff for different communities, a lot of times associated with condos. Some, other like single family homes have HOAs and stuff as well. And each HOA is different, but there are rules. It does limit sometimes things that you can do. So if you have a single family house or something, whether you can build fence or what color your fence has to be or things of that nature. So some people don't like it because it limits the different things that they can do with their property. Other times people do like it because in the HOA fee, it can include different, my particular one for this condo, there's a pool there. There's like a basketball court and a playground. It takes care of all like the mowing and the snow removal, and things of that nature. While I lived there, we had a huge hailstorm that did significant amount of damage to the properties, and so all of the exterior, the siding, and the roof and all that kind of stuff was replaced through the HOA insurance versus our personal insurance. And so, yeah, different HOAs are different and include different aspects. There's benefits to them, and there's sometimes not so great benefits. But it definitely was important in this aspect because even today, I still own the property, and it does take a healthy chunk out of your cash flow potential there. So it's definitely something that needs to be considered whenever you're if you're intending to buy something for rental property that is in an HOA.
And one thing I like to always say is everything balances out in the end, right? So if you're going to spend more money on HOA, which reduces your cash flow, see how it actually affects your capital expenditure, right? Because right. HOA may cover the roof, right, for the specific situation or whatever the case is, but always understand those things and run your numbers. Super important there. Okay, excellent. So what was next? First deal into what happened to the next one?
So I rolled out of there and I went to Hawaii. I was stationed in Hawaii. So my next 10 years. So I was in Hawaii for 3 and San Diego, or I guess about 5. So it's about the next 8 years. 5 of those I was on ships and subs and stuff, doing quite a bit of time deploying. And so it wasn't very intentional. I continued to get the income from this condo. 2010, I picked up another single family house. It was very just an opportunity. My brother was actually selling one, leaving for a job. I ended up picking it up as a rental. Again, I wasn't really looking. I just kind of fell into that. And then in 2013, I ended up buying 36-acre farm just down the road from my dad. And again, that was kind of an opportunity. I wasn't looking that much. We'd been renting some of our family farm to some cattlemen in Nebraska. It was pretty a lot higher than the average market for pasture rent and stuff. And so an opportunity to come up at an auction to buy that farm. And for a couple of years, was renting that out to some farmers in Nebraska. So that's, single family house, a little farm there in a couple of years. And that's kind of what led me up acquiring a couple of properties, not very intentional about it. Still, they just were opportunities. I kind of picked them up. And that was kind of about it up until late 2016. So the next thing after that was I'd moved to Colorado by this time, and it was late 2016, and another extended family member was selling a small commercial building in my hometown. It's a small rural community in Northeast Missouri, and it wasn't even on the market. I don't think. I think she just mentioned, they were talking about selling it and stuff. And I kind of reached out to her and asked about it. And she's like, "Oh, that's funny. Your brother had also reached out to me and kind of asked me about it." And my brother was in Iraq at the time. He was deployed to Iraq. And so even from over there, he kind of reached out. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to compete against him. Right. So I kind of reached out to him, and we just kind of started talking a little bit. And, we had some of the same goals. We kind of wanted to start acquiring some real estate as, a wealth generator and to build some generational wealth for our families and provide options. And so we just decided, hey, if we're going to do this, let's do it together. Let's partner and work together. And so that kind of led us to putting together an LLC. There's actually 5 of us. I have 2 older brothers and then 2 brother-in-laws. So there's 5 of us all together in that. And that started in late 2016, early 2017. And since then we've acquired about 12 doors, single family houses, a couple commercial buildings or multi-use spaces. and that's mostly around our hometown in Northeast Missouri. A couple of them are within an hour or so from there. But that's what kind of been working on since that time frame.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So you got with your brothers. You guys were both looking at the same property in two different locations, and your realtor's like, "Hey, your brother was just looking at this." And you got 5 brothers. That's crazy, and you guys are all on the same page when it comes to building that wealth. That's what we call like legacy wealth, right, for the family. So that's awesome. One question I have is, you got the condo, you got a farm, you got some commercial buildings, and then you got them all in the same location, right? Why did you choose your hometown? Why did you choose that place? I mean, I assume it's pretty rural there, and I know a lot of people will talk about population and things like that. So what was you guys' thought process in keeping it local and building there?
Yeah, so with the like the farm and stuff, part of that was because it was right down the road from my dad. We were already renting to some farmers and stuff that he took care of. So it was close proximity for him to take care of that property and stuff as well. And then as we kind of moved in with, talking with the business with my brothers, that first property that we were both looking at happened to be in our hometown. And from there, we have mostly expanded there because we're all kind of geographically separated. So of course I'm over here in England. That brother's in the Navy as well. So he's moved around from Washington to California to Georgia and now Tennessee in that time frame. A brother in Kansas right now, and then there are 2 in Missouri as well. One of those does live in our hometown, and so he is kind of there as kind of our property manager for the time being, right? So we do most of our properties. There's a couple like an hour away in another town that we do have professional property management, but the ones in our hometown we do manage ourselves. And so that was kind of because we were also geographically separated. That's the one place we knew at the time, right? We didn't spend a bunch of time doing market research somewhere else. And not that there's anything wrong with doing that. It's just like, that's the place we knew. That's where the first property that bought together. We had a brother-in-law that was there helping to manage the properties. And we also knew, although it is a pretty small population right there, there's always a demand for rentals. There are always people asking if anyone knows of any rentals available. And so we know that there's a need for people to do so, right? And so we just have to take that into consideration, that the rents in that rural area aren't as high as you're going to see in, some urban areas. There is kind of a cap on, the price that people that are renting are willing to pay. That's less than, but we need to take that into account on the front side when we're purchasing. Like, where's the range that makes it affordable for us to purchase and still cash flow on the back end.
But one thing it sounds like you don't have to worry about too much because it's a smaller town is those vacancies, right? You said 12 years in a condo and only 2 months vacant. That's absolutely unheard of. So I guess that's one of the advantages to being in the smaller populated areas, right?
Yeah, the properties, the single family houses and stuff that we have people in, we don't. I mean, our second property that we bought in LLC was a single family house and stuff. And that one, the very first tenants that we had move in shortly after we bought the property are still in it today. It's been 3.5 years or something like that. And I don't see any signs of them leaving anytime soon. Right. And so, we don't have a lot of vacancies there. The couple places that we have vacant are typically our own fault. Like we've bought properties that we bought a couple properties via auction that we were going to rehab. It was bigger rehab than we thought. We were kind of like slow to do rehab or, because we didn't have that system set up yet. We were just buying kind of more, I don't want to say turnkey, but things that needed just a little bit of rehab work and get somebody in. And so a couple we bought needed bigger things and took us longer to get done. And those ones that have vacancies are typically our own fault, not because the community.
And that slow growth, I guess methodical approach to the acquisitions that you guys have done has truly made your business model, bulletproof in essence, right? You went from 2004 slow move to Hawaii, got another one, then 2013, 36-acre farm, random, right? That's not even in the wheelhouse that you were doing. Then another 3 years later, right? Everybody thinks I have to buy one deal a year, 5 deals a year, whatever the case is. No, 3 years later, then you bought a commercial building. Again, not in your wheelhouse, right? Something completely random. And then from there, it started to scale because you partnered with your brothers and you started to leverage a lot of those gaps, right? Your time, your energy and things of that nature.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing, some people think you have to have focus and do just one thing. And there's value in focusing and, a system and getting good at one thing. I certainly can't claim that has been me. I've, a lot of different things, the condo, the farm, single family, couple commercial buildings. Some of them are just kind of like opportunistic type things. And, but it's worked for us. It's been kind of slow growth. And we're at a point now where, that we can kind of, see what's working, what not, and take opportunities and kind of going back, we talk about the leverage and stuff. Some of the beginning of this, out of those 12 properties, I think we've only put a down payment on maybe 2 of them or something. We've had like a lot of different creative financing or different things like that. And if you go all the way back to that condo that I bought, in 2004, and admittedly, I bought that condo individually, but I used some equity we had in that condo to help us get into a couple of our first properties as an LLC, right? So that was one of my contributions to the LLC. But by that time I had so much equity in there that we were able to cross-collateralize and use some of that equity to not put a down payment on a couple of our first proproperties.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Do a little bit deeper dive on that. So you mentioned some creative strategies that you had, and I love that you talked about you had the equity in your home and you use that to cross-collateralize and get into new assets. Can we talk about that a little bit? And then also, how are you able to do some of the creative things that you're able to do? Can you break that down for us, please?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'll try to be quick on this, but I'll do like 3 or 4 like different things that have helped us out. So our very first property, the little small commercial property that we got as an LLC, and this is one of the benefits of being in a small town and small community banks. There was no tricks to that one. We literally just went and talked to the bank and we said, hey, we are starting this thing up together. We want to kind of revitalize. It was an underused commercial building. We want to give back to this community. And we literally got a loan for 0 down.
What?
So it just gave us a loan, no money down. It's a small commercial building. It's not great, not a huge value. We just went and talked to them and they gave us some money for 0 down. So that was one. The second property that we bought together was a single family house, and we bought it from someone in the extended family. And, they were going to put it on market. We talked to them and we ended up purchasing the property. And so we purchased a property. I think it was appraised for about $86,000 and we bought it for $60,000. And we were talking to the banker again. We were kind of asking, do we have to put a down payment on the appraised price? Do we have to put it on the price that we're paying? And within that conversation, what we basically ended up doing is we had the family member gift us, a couple of us, the down payment. So, I think, how you can gift, I think it's $14,000 or $15,000 a year to an individual, right? And so the physical money didn't actually cross hands, but it was basically the family member gifted a couple of us the down payment. And by doing that, we ended up not paying anything down on that either. Right. So that's kind of a unique situation where we're buying within a family and stuff that's not going to be available to everyone. And there are some risks there too, depending on the age of the family member. There's potential impacts to whether they can get Medicare, Medicaid, things like that. So think about the consequences, but just, kind of to think about different options that you can use. And then going back to the cross-collateralization, it was probably the third property or so, and I've done it for a couple of them, but when I started to use that. So now we're third property. We still haven't put a down payment on something that we've bought together. And basically what I've done is I had enough equity built up in the condo, and in the LLC, we were starting to make, small capital contributions individually, but we didn't have like a large capital yet built up. And so I just decided like, hey, I was willing to, as part of my contribution, to use some of that equity to get into another property. And, so for those that don't know how that works, and basically, some people, use a HELOC, or they may refinance another property and pull cash out, different options like that. And by doing this, I don't have any like the administrative costs of doing that. Basically, the bank that we're using basically gets a second lien position on my condo, right? And so I'm using the equity the same as people are pulling cash out. and the current bank on our new property gets a second lien position on my condo. So is there a risk in doing that? Absolutely. You know, if something happened that we defaulted on the new property, the bank can go after your second one, right? And so there are risks in doing that. It's, you know, you can use it. There's ways to get around that too. If you're using it for a BRRRR or something like that, you can use that equity to get into the property. And then when you have done the rehab and pull the money out or something, you can kind of untie it from the lien on your other property. So there are risks in doing it. You have to understand that and know that, and there are ways to mitigate it as well.
Yeah,
so
cross-collateralization is like the new sexy thing that I am really trying to study and learn. And you're right. There's so many creative ways you can do it. It's a simple concept. But there are a lot of little different nuances. How did you find a man? And we're not going to spend too much time on this, but how did you find a bank that was willing to do the cross-collateralization, to take the second position? Yeah.
Right. So again, the bank we're using is, well, we've used a couple different banks, but they're in our small hometown, right?
Gotcha.
And so we basically, and I did that the first time I did that. I actually didn't even know the term. I went and said like, hey, I have equity in this property. What's the most like efficient way for me to use that and stuff? And like later on, you know, kind of heard the term, but yeah, we're using some small community banks. You know, we have very close relationships with them. We grew up around them. We know them. They know our family. They know what we're trying to do and accomplish. And, you know, I think of course they have close tabs on us. They see what they can see what we're doing every day when they drive down Main Street and stuff. So, but yeah, we just went to a small community bank. We talked to them about it, and that's how and in one case, I think the bank has a second and like third lien on the condo. And if you're using the same bank, they're more likely to do that. They might not mind having, you know, second and third together. If you have a different bank on each, you know, if you have like 3 properties tied to one, you know, banks aren't probably going to want to take the third lien or something like that, right? Because they're third in line. But yeah.
So one thing that everybody listening, the audience, the biggest thing that you guys need to take away from this is that there's, you know, just ask, guys. There's so many solutions out there. Ask the questions. Even if you don't know the right questions to ask. Marcus said he just walked in, he was like, hey, I got equity. What do I do with it, right? He didn't know cross-collateralization was a thing. He didn't know, you know, how to tie him up and to do the BRRRR on the back end and so forth and so on. So you got to just ask questions. And ultimately, the real kind of nugget there was that, you know, when you do partnerships, everybody's going to have a role, a responsibility, and everybody's going to have to contribute in one way or another. And if you already have gotten your property a couple years back and you got some equity, you know, an owner contribution does not have to be with cash, right? It does not have to be a standard capital call, right? It can be with equity. It can be with time. It can be with, you know, whatever, right? Maybe you got the good credit. So maybe you're the one that guarantees the loan. So just understand these things, guys, as you're moving forward. And there's so many ways to put together a beautiful creative deal and make it bulletproof. You know, that's how you got to do it.
Yeah. So I love the story. I love the cross collateralization. I love your flow of how you did things. Very deliberate. And I know sometimes you said it was kind of sporadic, I guess, but deliberate up into getting, you know, building your team, which is essentially a team of your brothers, and then also in your hometown. Yeah, I completely love how you did that. Now, when it comes to building out the rest of your team, right? I know you got a brother that's on ground. How are you guys finding? Because you mentioned in a few minutes ago talking about how you rehab the homes and things like that. I mean, are you also using people like in your hometown to do that as well, or how are you finding those members to put into your team?
Yeah, it is mostly around our hometown, like the general contractors and things like that. There are a handful of those, and just like everywhere else, you know, even in bigger urban areas and stuff, it is a challenge, you know, number one, either to find good quality or ones that are available, right? If they're good in quality, then it's difficult to, you know, be on a good timeline and stuff. But most of the like general contractors and stuff that have done work for us and stuff are in our hometown. And in reality, most of them went to high school with us or something like that. Like some of them went to high school with us, went to college, came back, have started businesses there in our hometown. And so we're using people that we know and trust, right? That is one benefit of that area or in your small hometown or something like that, versus having to necessarily vet people that you absolutely don't know. Most of these people we grew up with or know them. There's been a couple of situations, where we've had to do like some foundation work and things where we had to go outside, an hour or two away and bring somebody in. But we kind of just reached out to some other people and just kind of vetted. And when we started hearing the same name 2 or 3, 4 times, that's when we started calling. But most of the different team members and stuff that we use, whether, it's like I said, we property manager owned, as far as like contractors, banking, our insurance, all that kind of stuff is mostly hometown businesses.
Yeah, you gotta love it, man. Yeah, the small town thing is, I guess it's overlooked. I think might be the best way to kind of describe it, because many people think when a small town, like Dan was mentioning earlier, hey, we don't have the population, we don't have the income, we can't invest there. But then, just like to your point, well, hey, we got the bank relationships, so we get the best financing. Yeah. We got the contractors that we went to high school. We played ball with them. So a lot of times they are overlooked, and they can be very, very strong markets.
Yeah, I mean, as you grow and get bigger, certainly there's, there might be a limited pipeline there compared to larger places, but certainly when you're starting out, and depending on like what you want to grow to and what your goals are, there's certainly value in starting there.
So that's actually a perfect segue. So as you're ready to scale, you mentioned now you're in some limited partnerships and some syndications, some passive investing, and I'm assuming that's because you're ready to scale. So what does that look like on your end? Why did you decide to go there, and what does that actually entail?
Yeah. So, it's a good question. And as I get closer, I said earlier, I was at 19 years in the military, and I'm, kind of on the verge of looking at transitioning out of the military in the next few years. And so, we started this business with my brothers and stuff in our hometown. And one thing we did with that LLC is we had agreed that we were not going to do any kind of distributions for a certain number of years, right? All of the capital was going back in there so that we can grow. And so when I started looking at that, I knew it was like that time period to do distributions was going to be after I intended to get out of the military. And so I wanted to kind of take some stuff on my own as well on the side. And my goal to be to replace my military income by the time I retire. And so I was like, I'm doing all this work in the LLC and that growth, but we're not going to do distributions, and I'm not doing enough stuff on my, myself right now to meet that goal. So I was like, I got to kick it into gear, right? And so, about the time shortly after I came over to England, I joined a mastermind back in the fall, and that's been money. It's kind of helped me increase the velocity, and it kind of gave me the relationships and saw a lot of these opportunities that I'm getting into. And so as I got over here, I was kind of looking like, how do I scale on some of my personal investments so that I can achieve replacing that military income? And within this mastermind stuff, I just started learning, more about different opportunities and stuff other than just, single family buy and hold and things like that. And so in talking with a few of the guys and girls in the group, I have like this capital. So when I was in Colorado, I owned a house there. We Airbnb'd a room and stuff. And so and we sold it, for a pretty good profit when we left and came over here. And so between some of the capital that I had built up through the years, plus what we had from selling that property in Colorado, I was sitting on some capital, and I was like, I want to invest this, better than it was kind of sitting in a high yield saving. I was trying to be kind of patient, make sure I used it correctly. And that's when my eyes got opened up to some other opportunities where I had the capital and I could invest in, people were out there looking for these deals. And so I got in just after since the beginning of this year. I didn't really invest in a whole lot more in the last few months of last year as I was kind of transitioning and getting settled over here. And so just since the beginning of this year, I've been invested as a limited partner in a mobile home park syndication and in an apartment syndication. And I've done private lending on about 3 or 4 different flips for, being the private, doing gap funding or different ones have different needs, but I've done that about 4 times as well. And so, yeah, it's just kind of given me an opportunity to expand to some different areas. And, the private lending is kind of a, 2 to 7 months where I'm getting my money back, and, keeps my money working while I'm looking at other opportunities and some of the syndications, those syndications might be looking for a like 5 to 7 year turnaround, before they, might look at selling them or something. And so trying to kind of, ladder the time frames and things like that, in which I expect money to be coming back around. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
For all my finance nerds out there, let's rise up. Like, think about it, guys. So we all look at, every time we invest, right, no matter where you are across the board, across the spectrum, we talk about our dividend or whatever time we're going to start receiving our returns. And a lot of times you'll ladder them, just like Marcus is talking about, right? So you have some long-term yields, you have some short-term yields. And as they start to come back, even dividend investing, right? Some pay out quarterly, so let's stack them. So maybe the quarterly would be due on like January, whatever, the third and fourth, so forth and so on. All right, so for all my finance nerds, all right, so it's all about stacking those returns, okay? So just like Marcus is talking about, you got your long-term yields, you got your short-term yields, because you want to be making money throughout the entire time that you're holding any investment, right? You don't want to just make money on one 3 years from now, and you want to be able to make money month to month. So as you think about that, the traditional path of real estate investing is, hey, you got to start off wholesaling, then you got to move to flips, then you could do buy and hold, then you could do syndication. Well, Marcus wiped that all out. He was like, all right, well, I'm going straight to buy and hold house hack. I'm going to buy a farm. You know what? I'm going to get a commercial space for $0 down, and then I'm going to move into limited partnerships and syndication, right? It's a bulletproof method because it's systematic, right? It's smooth, it's thought out. You just ask questions. I mean, did you have anybody in your life, Marcus, teach you about real estate, or was this pretty much self-taught? And as you went, you found mentors and people to kind of educate you along the way?
Yeah. So, I mean, there certainly wasn't anybody in like my younger years that was into real estate this way that I was learning from. I'm not going to say that it was all on me. Everything I know is based on people that I've surrounded myself with. Right. So certainly other people have been a huge value in that, but there wasn't someone in my life that was in real estate that I followed and learned from. It's kind of once I picked it up, I picked up some books, I read some podcasts, and you start surrounding yourself with those people. And, that's kind of how you learn, I think, and get that knowledge and take action and do stuff, right? Like exactly. can't just sit on it and do nothing. So, sometimes it does seem like I haven't been focused, and I've been in different areas, but and it was important to me. I was taking action, I was doing something, right? And so, and over time, not all of the decisions you make are going to be perfect, and you kind of optimize some things later, right? When I started doing the private lending at the beginning of this year, I was doing that with some of my personal money. And, as I'm kind of like learning a little bit and stuff, I'm like, I'm going to set up a self-directed IRA with a Roth that I have, because I want to do the private lending in a more tax advantaged way. Right. And so doing it with my personal money, I'm not really getting any tax advantages. So I'd rather buy assets with my personal money and get the depreciation and things like that, and then do my private lending in a self-directed IRA where I can, that's more tax advantage. So, your decisions don't have to be perfect in the start. Take some action, and then you can kind of finesse things as you go down the road.
Yeah. Hey, diversification, right? Everybody talks about diversification, and typically what everybody thinks about when they hear that is the stock market, right? And you can only diversify through the stock market, and you got to buy some tech stocks, you got to buy some, some commodities, you got to buy something like that. Marcus here is talking about diversifying in all types of finance, even just in real estate himself alone. He's talked about flips. He's talked about Airbnb. He's talked about private lending, right? He's talked about limited partnerships on syndications. Then you go into the self-directed IRA. We talk about these streams of income, right? These different streams. I mean, I think I just named off like 4 or 5 just alone, and he's already touched on more than that. So you don't just diversify only through the stock market. That's one tool, one thing that you can do to diversify through. When people talk about real estate, there's multiple ways to diversify through real estate. And like I said, Marcus has already done 5 or 6 of them. So that's something to think about. That diversification doesn't only have to be just the stock market. Real estate provides the ability to diversify as well. So love it. Yeah. So how much has quick question, how much has the military influenced your business and real estate skill set?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things you can take from a career in the military and apply over, whether, just like the leadership and leading teams and things like that is very important. I think one of the things that I've thought about recently a lot that I've gotten kind of from the military that's been applicable is the ability to pivot. I think that, in the military, any of us that have done it, know, you spent hours and days and months or whatever to build up for an operation or whatever it is. And then it doesn't happen, like 6 hours before it's supposed to happen, and if you spend enough time in the military, that's just one example, but and you can either spend time, being upset and frustrated or whatever, or you can look, the situation has changed, right? You can look at what opportunities are available now. And so I think that's something I've kind of taken recently. I've obviously done mostly long distance as I moved around and stuff. And kind of as I moved over here to England in the past year, I took a totally different direction than I had been kind of working on as that continues to move. But I was like, okay, what now? Right. Like, so the situation has changed. And, when I first, going back just a little bit on the story, when I was in Colorado, that's when I first really started going to some meetups, meeting people and getting excited about actually real estate investing and, surrounding myself with others. And then I moved to England and I had to start the virtual networking a few months before everyone else did, for COVID. So it was kind of like I was getting excited about the meetups. And then I came over here. I was like, well, shoot. But I had to look at another opportunity, right? The situation changed. I had to take that opportunity. And that's really how I've gotten into a lot of the opportunities that I've taken this year. And so I think the ability to pivot has been a big one for me that, kind of like learning in the military and applying that in real estate.
And I don't think we've heard it phrased like that yet to this point on this podcast. And I love it so much because I try to tell veterans all the time, or servicemen and women, that, hey guys, we are trained to be entrepreneurs.
That's right.
Right? Because we work 20 hours a day. We're always adjusting and adapting to the new whatever's coming down. We're always like, we're trying to be as proactive as we can, but we have to be reacting to the circumstances.
That's right.
And that is exactly what entrepreneurs do. And I love how you said it like that. But again, it's just coming from another successful real estate investor, right? And obviously successful subjective, but you've shown a very proven track record of how you've done it while active duty. So that's proven fact that every serviceman and women out there, we can be entrepreneurs, right? So hopefully that's empowering to somebody listening.
Absolutely.
If you've ever, we call that reacting to contact, right? if you've ever been anywhere and we're in the military and we're reacting to contact all the time. I love how you pretty much said, hey, you can be proactive even if you got to react to contact. I mean, you can still look for those opportunities still while the situation has changed, like you said. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, it's human nature that you're going to get, have a little bit of frustration, from the switch in situation or whatever it is, but, limit the amount of time you're frustrated and then look at what opportunity has presented itself.
Part of life.
Yeah. So I got one question before we start to kind of wrap this up. You mentioned it several times, meetups in Colorado, and then the Mastermind, which really helped you kind of push to your velocity. Right. How much weight, or how much would you say the masterminds, the meetups, that personal accountability, how much would you say has contributed to your success?
Certainly. So I didn't do it for a long time, and I've seen so much change since I have. So the meetups I started in Colorado, the Mastermind I started, I think it was about 10 months ago. And the accountability and just the motivating each other and each other's success and surrounding yourself with the like-minded people has been instrumental. And I'll give you one quick example of that. So part of the reason that I joined the Mastermind was because, as I mentioned earlier, one of my goals was to make up my military paycheck by the time I retire. Well, that time, I'm not going to retire right at 20, but it's not going to be too long after. And that time's sneaking up pretty darn quick. So I found myself talking about replacing my income and some of my peers were talking about like, oh, just stay in, get promoted, stay in another 3 years and see what the difference in retirement is. I was like, that's not what I want. Yeah. And I can make up that difference quicker than you can. Yeah. And so I said that, but then I was like, now I have to do it. Right. And I wasn't necessarily on a track that I was going to. So I was like, I have to do something to hold myself accountable and have others help me, be accountable. And that's why I joined the Mastermind. And I looked at the difference in if I stayed in 3 years and got promoted and that retirement. And since January of this year until now, I've made up 75% of that just this year. So
time in 1/3.
That's right. If what you want to do is stay in the military and that's where your passion still is, and that's what you want to do, absolutely go for it. But I don't want people to feel like they don't have an option, right? People should have options. And so, you have a limited ability to increase the velocity of your pay raises in the military, right? They come at systematic times. I mean, you can help yourself get promoted, but you have to wait so long to do that. I don't have to wait. I control the pay raises that I get with my own decision.
And how powerful is that for you to know, that, hey, I want $2,000 more a month. You know that you control it.
Absolutely.
Like how powerful. That's just like you said. Now, you don't rely on the military for anything, right? Again, it's a passion. It's something that you enjoy to do. You enjoy serving. By all means, go out and do that. But there's so many people out there that are fearful for that paycheck. They stay in based off of fear.
It's very powerful, and you're absolutely right. And I'm seeing that. I've seen it for 19 years, but I'm also seeing it now as my peers are getting to the point where we have a decision of whether we want to retire or continue on. There's some people that are making that decision based on financial security, and I'm going to give myself financial security and give my family options so that paycheck is waving in front of me doesn't make the decision for me.
I love it. I love it.
That's
gonna be its own bulletin. That's gonna be a clip right there.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. So if you had to give, just wrapping it up a little bit, if you had to give one piece of advice to someone out there, any service member out there that's trying to do what you're doing, what would that advice be?
Well, I think we probably just spent the last 3 or 4 minutes talking about it. Really, the 1-2 punch that you hear a lot is education and taking action, and I think those are vital to do. But the one thing I would say is to get in a group and surround yourself with like-minded people. And maybe it's the military cash flow group, right? Hop in there, engage with other people, ask questions, answer others' questions, whatever that is. But from 2004, when I bought my first property, until just about 2 years ago, like I never engaged with anyone outside of I saw the velocity increase as I started working with my brothers and in that partnership in 2016. And then a couple of years ago, when I started going to meetups and then the Mastermind, that velocity continues to increase, right? And so education is important, take some action. But if you put yourself in an environment where, like-minded people, they're trying to go after the same types of goals that they have done or are doing the same things, you're going to get educated and you're going to take action. So that's my thing is, put yourself in that environment and you're going to grow.
Put yourself in the environment.
Action.
Put yourself in the environment. And I think you touched on a key thing that a lot of people, I think, miss. So a lot of people will join groups, will get in certain circles, but they'll just kind of stay in the sideline and not actually ask a question, not actually participate. Yes, correct. So what Marcus said, and he said it in there as well. So when you join those groups, when you join Military Cashflow Facebook group or whatever group you join, if you go to a meetup, make sure you actually participate, ask questions, shake hands, talk to people. Don't just sit on the back and get the information. That's all cool. What you're there to do is to add value to the group, and in turn, you're going to add value to whatever your personal situation is. That's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to grow. I realize it's uncomfortable, but that is how we grow. We don't grow out of comfort. We grow out of being uncomfortable.
That's right.
And if everybody kind of looks back into their childhood days when they were sitting in the classroom, it was those kids, that y'all might have been like, oh, teacher's pet, whatever. No, it was those kids that were engaging in the curriculum, right? Engaging, like asking questions. Well, why do you carry the 2? It was those that had the better grades. It was those that grasped the concepts, right? I'm not saying that this is school. What I'm saying, this is how we learn. We engage. We have to ask the questions. We have to ask for understanding and comprehension. So when you go into these places, that is what you have to do to take anything out. You get out what you put in.
That's absolutely right. And Dan, you nailed it. Talking about the growth with being in uncomfortable positions. That is right on. It's like, and you might be uncomfortable, like, oh man, this is going to be a stupid question, or like people, like we've all been there. None of us have like these unique thoughts or ways, right? Like everything that we know and do around real estate, we read in a book, we heard it on a podcast, we saw it at a meetup, whatever. We're not unique thoughts. And so we've all been there. We've all learned that. So jump out there and ask the question, engage. And then when you get to the point where you have that knowledge and someone else is asking, jump in there and answer it for them.
Absolutely.
Yes. Hey, Marcus, man, that was an awesome episode. You pretty much laid everything out for. I love. We went from single family homes to farms to freaking
the farm still blows my mind.
Being in the hometown to commercial to private lending to mobile home park. Like I love it. I love it. And that's always said this is bulletproof investing. And you also touched on something that I'm very, very passionate about, which is a lot of leaders kind of making a lot of their decisions in the military, right, based off of a financial situation. And in turn, a lot of those leaders, when they only are thinking financial, they end up kind of honestly being crap leaders, and that affects soldiers, right? That affects sailors or seamen or whatever service that you're in. And I'm very, very passionate about that. I love that you touched on that. But how can our listeners get in contact with you?
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to send you all a picture of some cattle on the farm. You can put those in the show notes or something.
That'd be the thumbnail.
Yeah. So where can they get in contact with me? Yeah. So, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, Bigger Pockets. I'm on Instagram as marcus.l.long, Facebook, take your pick. I'm on all of them.
Excellent.
That's
too easy. Hey, so I really appreciate you coming on the show. You dropped a lot of knowledge. It's an extremely valuable episode. Just thanks a lot for coming on. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was awesome.
Absolutely. This was a lot of good content. And so for everybody that's listening, you already know what to do. For anybody watching the YouTube channel, you got to smash the like button. You got to subscribe. You have to leave some comments below. Add some comments, any questions that you may have. If you're listening to it on podcast, obviously we need a 5-star review, nothing less, right? But obviously give us your honest feedback. And then the Facebook group, guys. We have the Facebook group. Come out and join us. We've now grown to where are we at now, Dan? We're over.
At the time of this recording, it's like 1,100 or so. So yeah,
1,100. We grew like 500 in a matter of a couple of weeks. So, but as you guys are coming in, like we mentioned, we need you to participate and be actively involved in that group, guys. We'd love to help out new servicemen and women for sure. What else we got, Dan?
Yeah, so if you're looking for a realtor, if you're about the PCS and you're looking for some real estate professionals to help you out, some vetted people, Mike and I and our team, we vet realtors and vet other professionals to help you out. So if you're looking for somebody, regardless of where you're at in the U.S., we can assist you. We've already assisted a few other people, and they're loving it. So make sure our realtors understand investment terminology. Most times they're investors themselves as well. So, and then also they're military friendly. So we're doing that as a service to you. Make sure that that you are taken care of when you go for that first cash flowing property. Also, if you're looking for a step-by-step virtual course, we do offer that as well. Check out militarycashflow.com. You can see the course. You can see the sneak peek. We show you how to, find it, analyze it, buy, renovate, do everything that you need to pick up your first property, second property, and all the tools that we use to analyze deals and take down these deals as well. So definitely check that out. Other than that, I think that's it. Hey, this is Dan Wynn
and Mike Glaspie
signing off.